I'm back. There we go.
Back. And
there we go.
Right.
Those are albino.
Are they albino?
So these ones, that's right. Whoever said that, it was correct. These are the albino ones. Yeah, because you can see they have no pigmentation in their eyes or in their all of their body, right?
Yeah.
Do you guys know what these red things are that's sticking out of their heads?
Gills?
Those are the gills. So these guys have external gills, and this is how they obtain oxygen from the water. So the reason they're red is because these guys are albinos, and so there's no coloration in their skin, right? And so what you actually see then are little tiny blood vessels, and they're red from their blood, and so that's the color red.
Okay.
Let me show you.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead. If you have other questions, I'll be happy to show you a couple of little guys right here.
Oh. How old are
right there?
Oh, how old are they?
So this one is, let me see, from March. So I guess 5 months old.
Okay. So you raise them and do the whole life cycle.
Well, lately I have been, yeah. And talking of life cycle, let me show you the eggs that are going to hatch. I actually have one hatched already. So you'll see right there.
Oh, that's
so
fabulous. Look at that.
They're so tiny.
Oh,
yeah,
that is
so
fabulous.
So these guys here are still inside their eggs, but this guy already got out this morning.
That's
So
amazing.
Little tiny ones, right?
Yeah.
And there's the mama.
Oh, she's standing still.
Oh,
I'm waiting for my babies to hatch.
we do have some questions, and this kind of ties in with that. Would you want to share your question?
Please. Yes, please ask me questions.
Can you explain why do axolotls regenerate their limbs?
Say it again.
Can you explain why do axolotls regenerate their limbs?
Oh, can I explain it?
How can you explain regeneration to our class? We're so fascinated by that concept.
Of course. So when they get damaged in the limbs or the tail or some of the organs, so like if a larger animal or bird tries to eat them, but they escape, so the axolotl escapes, but they still get some damage from the attack, right? They just have this unique evolutionary advantage where at the site of the injury, the little stem cells start accumulating. And then from those stem cells grows the rest of the tissue. So they fix the damage and then they regenerate what was lost. So for example, you know how we have our little fingertips, right? Or fingers.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately that happens in life when people work on farms or in factories, or sometimes it even happens at home. If people are not very careful, they can lose a piece of their finger, right? Happens, right? Well, when it happens to axolotls, a little bunch of stem cells accumulates at the site of the injury, and then they regrow whatever was lost. And they can do that repeatedly. So we know that they do that. We're still not sure how and why it happens in these animals, but it doesn't happen in many other animals. Now, the cool thing is that in little kids, little children, like when they're still like babies, if little babies get damaged on the tip of their fingers, they can actually also regrow that little tip. But we lose that ability very early on. So as we become, 2 years old, humans can no longer do that. So we would like to understand, and that's my research, is why is it that in axolotls, even when they're adults, they can still do it, but the rest of the animals either lose that ability or can never do that.
Thank you. We have a new question.
Yes.
I have a question for you. Why are they in danger?
Why are they in danger? That's a really good question. So they are native to central Mexico, the region in central Mexico where they live there in streams and rivers. That's their original habitat. And unfortunately, over the last 100 years or so, as you guys know, humans have produced a lot of pollution, right? And humans, and this region where they're from is not too far from Mexico City, which is a really, really large city. It's huge. And so there's lots of pollution coming from the city and from nearby areas as well. And so the waters where these axolotls live have become so badly polluted that it's been hard for them to live there. And so very few are left. So they're very, very endangered, almost extinct in wild.
Okay. And we've got another question here.
So, my name is Leva, and I have 3 questions. How does the axolotls, like I saw like in a picture that they have like 6 gills, but how do they work?
How do they walk?
So how do
How
they
do they walk?
Yeah, how
Oh,
do
yeah.
how do they work?
Okay.
So they swim and they can walk, right? So they can walk on the sand that they live in. Let me see if I can
Okay.
reverse the screen and show you that. So this guy right now, this one here, see him?
Uh-huh.
So he's pretty much kind of sitting on the sand, and he'll walk on the sand if he wants to. And sometimes they'll swim when they want to, like this guy here, right?
Okay.
So they walk like like a lizard would walk on the ground. Same kind of matter.
Okay. Thank you. Did you have more?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
She's got 2 more questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. How like the axolotls 6 fins?
The-
I mean the
Yeah.
gills?
Their gills?
Yeah, the gills.
Yeah.
How do they move?
How do their gills move?
Uh-huh. Like can they move?
Oh, yes, they do move a little bit. Very good question, actually. So, because these gills are used to acquire oxygen from the water, right?
Mhm.
They're little tiny muscles at the base of the gills. So when it's just like us, when we want to take a big breath, we use our muscles to open up our chest to take a breath, right? Like try it right now with me. Right? So we use our muscles to do that. And so they use their muscles to move the gills so they can move the water around them and get more oxygen out of it.
Okay. Thank you. Did you have more questions?
And then I have one more.
Uh-huh.
Like I have a question about like the moms
Uh-huh.
of like the axolotls. Like
Yes.
when they give birth to the baby axolotls, like are there like the eggs like clear or are they like
Yeah. So that's what I showed you, right? So when they drop eggs, the eggs are clear. And you can see the little tiny embryo inside the egg, right? So here we can see them again, right there. See them?
Yeah.
So they're clear eggs, and then you can actually watch the baby axolotls grow inside the egg over like a 2-week period.
Okay. Thank you. We've got another question here.
Do you name your axolotls?
That's an excellent question. So I personally only have 2 axolotls that I've named because they're kind of the mascots of the lab. I've had them for 12 years. So they're the first ones I got. And I use them for show and tell when, students come to visit or whatever. So I named those, and their names are Eddie and Sal. But the rest of them, I have like 120 axolotls. And I can't possibly name them all, but my students name them all. So my students invent names and they put stickers, and so they all have names.
Okay.
And then my other question was, how many do you have? But you just answered.
I just answered that. Yeah. So about 120. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. That's
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you. We've got another friend with a question here.
Okay.
What do axolotls eat?
What do they?
Eat.
Oh, eat. Excellent question. Let me show you their food. So actually, it's very similar to the kind of food. If any one of you has turtles, do any people keep turtles as pets or anything like that? So it's very similar food to. I don't know if you guys can see it. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just little pellets that we use for all kinds of animals, and that's what they eat. So they an adult axolotl will eat about 6 or 7 of those every 2 days, and some fish. So I basically buy like a fish food, and that's what they eat.
Okay. And our next question.
Are they smart?
Good question. Not very smart. Well, they're kind of cool. So they recognize humans and they come, so they get used to us feeding them, obviously, right? And so when I come into the room and I approach the aquarium, the tank, they start swimming in because they think I'm going to feed them. So they clearly have learned, like this guy here is going to start coming up. See? If I can you see that? He's coming up to me, right? Because he thinks I'm going to offer him food. So they obviously can learn. So they're not completely dumb. They're not that stupid. But we're not sure if they're very, very smart. But to tell you the truth, it's a really, really good question because scientists have not really studied well whether axolotls are very smart or not, whether they can solve problems like some other animals can. Scientists mainly focus on the fact that they can regenerate, and so they've been just doing work on the stem cells and regeneration. But I actually have plans to start maybe designing mazes and see if they can solve mazes and find their way in the maze and stuff like that. So I'm going to test that exact question that you are asking about in the coming years. I would like to know really how smart they are.
What are their sleeping habits?
Good question. So they don't close their eyes like many animals. And so they sleep with their eyes open. And sometimes it's hard to tell when they're asleep and when they're awake. But I think when they kind of lay there in suspension in water and not really move much, I think that's when they're taking their naps. So we keep them on a kind of daily cycle, just like, we have for us as humans, there's light during the day, and then at night I will turn off the light so it's dark for them. But they are awake at night. I know that because I can come in and see them swim. So I think they take lots of naps, but they don't take long sleeps like we do.
Okay. And question number 7.
My name is Christian.
Hi.
Please know about
Hi
the
there.
main predators of the axolotl.
Repeat your question slowly, honey.
Please tell us more about the main predator of the axolotl.
Sorry, I still didn't get.
We'd like to know more about the main predators of the axolotl.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Main predator. Right now, it's me, the human. So, in the wild, I guess it would be just like a larger fish, and maybe snakes or any animal that can kind of get into the water and catch them, because they're in the water, so they're not necessarily that easy to catch, and they can be really fast when they escape from you, right? But that would be the main predator. I would say that some birds of prey and maybe a larger fish.
Okay.
And I'm going to call Juliana to come for our last question. We're running out of time, but she has one here at the end. Go ahead.
My name is Julian. I have a question.
Hi.
As loud as you can go.
If you
Speak.
speak closer to the microphone, honey.
Come in close. Yeah, there you go.
I have a question about how do axolotls drink water?
How do
How do
axolotls
they
drink water?
Yeah, how do they drink water? Just the same way we do. So, or like any fish, right? So, when they need extra water, they'll just like gulp a little bit of water. It's all around them. But you know, what many people don't know actually is that axolotls also have lungs in addition to their gills. So they have real lungs. So they have to be careful about how they drink water so they don't get the water into the lungs, right? Sometimes they'll come up for air. So they'll come up to the surface and we can see them gulping for air a little bit, and then they'll go back in. But it's really hard for me when I observe them to see whether they're really drinking water or not. So I'm sure they're getting some, because it's like, you know, when you swim and water is just like inside your mouth, but you make sure that you don't swallow, right? So I think when they need it a little bit, they'll just like swallow a little.
Okay. Thank you so much. This was so fascinating. Our time is coming to an end. Do you have any final comments before we say our goodbye and our thank yous?
So I'm very grateful that you guys are interested, and thank you for arranging this conversation and virtual visit. I'm so sorry that I was late, and I'm hoping that everybody got to ask questions. If there's still students with other questions, we can follow up and arrange another time, and I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you so much. Can we say thank you to Dr.